On Monday afternoon in Atlanta, a 40-year-old goalkeeper from a tiny island nation walked onto the biggest stage in football. Standing across from him was Spain, the number 2 team on the planet, the reigning European champions, a team so deep that the players sitting on their bench would start for almost any other country in the world. And almost nobody watching knew his name. By the time the 90 minutes were over, the whole world did. This is the story of Vozinha, and it's one of the most beautiful stories this World Cup has given us. Let's go back to the beginning. He was born Josimar José Évora Dias on the 3rd of June 1986 in a town called Mindelo, a small place of around 70,000 people on the island of São Vicente in Cape Verde. His father wanted to name him Valdano after the famous Argentine striker Jorge Valdano, who played for Real Madrid, but the authorities wouldn't allow the name. So instead, the name that stuck came from his grandparents. They called him Vozinha. In Portuguese, it roughly means little granny. And those grandparents mattered more than anything. His father was away in the military. His mother was working. So it was his grandparents who raised him, who did everything for him. Remember them. They come back at the end of this story. As a kid, Vozinha loved football, and he was good. Really good. In his own words, he was one of the best goalkeepers on his entire island. But there was a problem. He was small, short for his age, and in trials, that's all the scouts could see. Not his talent, not his reflexes, just his height. Over and over, he was passed over. The best keeper on the island, left behind, because he didn't look the part. He watched other players leave São Vicente, most of them heading to Portugal, chasing the dream. And he stayed. He didn't turn professional until his early 20s. Most players that age are already established. Vozinha was just getting started. What came next was a journey almost no footballer has ever taken. He began at home with a small local club called Batuk. Then he moved to the city rivals, Mindelo. And then the wandering began. He went to Angola to a club called Progresso. Then Europe called, but never the glamorous part of it. Moldova, a club called Zimbru, Portugal, Gil Vicente in the 2nd division, where he saved 5 penalties in a single season. Cyprus, 5 years at AEL Limassol, where he won the one and only trophy of his club career. The Cypriot Cup. Slovakia, a club called Trenčín, and then back to Portugal to a 2nd division club called Chaves. Cape Verde, Angola, Moldova, Portugal, Cyprus, Slovakia. 6 countries, nearly 2 decades. A journeyman in the truest sense of the word. Never a superstar, never rich. Just a goalkeeper, quietly doing his job, year after year, in places most fans had never heard of. But there was one shirt where Vozinha was never just a journeyman, his country's shirt. He made his debut for Cape Verde back in 2012, and from that moment, the national team was where he truly came alive. Over the years, he played in 4 Africa Cup of Nations tournaments. He became the 2nd most capped player in his country's entire history. And in qualifying for this World Cup, he was extraordinary. 7 clean sheets in 10 games. In 10 matches, his team conceded only 8 goals. Cape Verde, a nation of around 500,000 people, one of the smallest countries ever to make it, had qualified for their first ever World Cup. And their 40-year-old keeper was going with them. Which brings us back to Atlanta, to Spain. Almost everyone expected a disaster. The day before, another debutante nation, Curaçao, had been beaten 7-1. Many assumed Cape Verde would be next. For 90 minutes, Spain attacked, and attacked, and attacked. 27 shots, wave after wave. And standing in the way of all of it was a 40-year-old man. He dove to his right and clawed a header off the line with his fingertips. When Spain got a clean look right in front of goal, he threw himself at the striker. And when the ball popped loose, he leapt up a second time to push the next shot away. 7 saves, save after save after save. And when the final whistle blew, the score was 0-0. Cape Verde had held the European champions. The smallest of underdogs had taken a point in their very first World Cup match. And the man of the match, the hero, was Vozinha. At 40 years and 12 days old, he became the oldest player ever to appear in a nation's first World Cup match. And then the camera found him, and the 40-year-old keeper broke down in tears. Because in that moment, he wasn't thinking about Spain. He was thinking about the grandparents who raised him, The ones who did everything for him, they had passed away a few years before, and they weren't there to see it. I cried, he said, because I grew up with my grandparents, and they could not be here. And there was one more empty seat, his mother. She hadn't been able to make it to Atlanta, caught up in the cost and the paperwork of a visa that didn't come together in time. But this story has one more turn. When the world heard why his mother wasn't there, people acted. Officials stepped in, the fees were waived, and arrangements were made. His mother, Anna, would get her chance after all, to fly to Miami, to watch her son play against Uruguay, to finally see with her own eyes the man her family had raised. Before that Monday, Vozinha had around 46,000 followers online. Within days, that number passed 12 million. Even Paul Pogba posted about him. But the numbers were never the point. The point is this. For 19 years, a short kid who was told he wasn't good enough kept going. Through 6 countries, through clubs nobody cheered for, through all the years when no one was watching. And then, at 40 years old on the biggest stage in the world, he stood tall and refused to be beaten. I have worked my whole life for this moment, he said. I thought about leaving, but I continued because of this dream. He was asked what he would say to the 18-year-old version of himself. His answer was simple. I would tell him to be really proud.